Today I am on a tram with the intention of going for a walk through the city that has been my home since 1960, when at 16 years of age I had just commenced work as an engineering apprentice at the premises of Associated Electrical Industries high and medium voltage switchgear division in Higher Openshaw on the eastern outskirts of the city. It will be a walk into both the present and the past. Today, in the year 2015, Manchester and its twin city of Salford is a dynamic economic and residential centre with a rich and continually developing culture of music, literature and science, second to no other city in Britain. It is rich both in terms of its heritage and the friendliness of its citizens. It is multicultural and ethnically diverse, and has been so throughout its history. It is not a city for Little Englanders or those with a UKIP mentality. It is a city of migrants, built and developed by migrants, some of whom moved on, but many of whom settled here and called it home. My own ancestors were migrants. They came to Manchester from Ireland, although they had not originated in Ireland, but from the Isle of Man. However, that was a long time ago. According to the 1841 census, my great-great-great-grandfather, a shoemaker named Malc Cowle, lived at Coronation Street, Salford. Evidently, he was born in 1781, although his birthplace is not given. But our story goes back much further. We have now arrived at Castlefield, so called because it was the site of a fort, a Roman fort, guarding the main road from Chester, which split in two here, one fort travelling northeast to the Roman city of York, whilst the other went northwest to the Roman town of Ribchester, and from there to Carlisle. The fort was built on a hill at the confluence of two rivers, namely the Medlock and the Irwell, and it was the Latinisation of the Celtic name of that hill which gave the modern city its name. That name in Roman times was Mamuseum, and it literally meant breast-shaped hill. The garrison was founded around about 70 AD by the General Agricola, and was originally a simple earth and timber construction. The Roman Emperor Septimus Severus, a North African, visited in AD 200, and it is believed he ordered that it be rebuilt in the red sandstone of the area. There is also evidence it was garrisoned by North African troops, a good 3 centuries before the ancestors of the Anglo-Saxon tribes, who eventually called themselves English, and the native Romano-British Celts as Welsh, meaning stranger or foreigner, arrived here. By the time of the Norman conquest, the village that would grow into the town of Manchester had moved from Castlefield to a hill slightly further north, overlooking the confluence of the river Irwell and the river Irk. Here the Norman lord of the manor built his residence, and the small village grew around its parish church, now Manchester Cathedral. Over the years, more migrants arrived, including in the 14th century a group of Flemish weavers. These were the people who would have such an important impact on the long-term future of their adopted home, a future which would transform a quiet agricultural village in the southeast of the Salford Hundred into the world's first industrial city. For it was they who established the village as a centre for the manufacture and distribution of cloth, weaving both wool and linen, and later cotton and silk. For some 4 centuries, the handloom weavers of Manchester, and Lancashire generally, prospered. It was a cottage industry in which all the family participated, the spinning usually undertaken by the women and girls, and the weaving by the men and boys. The merchants who bought their produce and marketed it also prospered, and it was one such merchant, Humphrey Chatham, a wealthy bachelor, who founded the school in Manchester for poor boys in 1653. He also endowed Chetham's Library on the same premises, which was the first free library open to the public in the English-speaking world. The college now houses the Chatham School of Music, and with 300 pupils, it is the largest music school in Great Britain. In 1764, a simple technological breakthrough was made by a hand-loom weaver from Oswaldtwistle that would eventually impoverish the majority of his fellows, although that was not his intention. James Hargreaves was working at his loom when one of his family knocked over their mother's spinning wheel. As James watched the wheel continue to spin on its side, he realized that with a fairly simple modification, it could be made to spin more than one bobbin of thread at a time. In fact, James's machine, which was still hand-operated and hand-powered, could produce 11 bobbins for every one hitherto produced. He named his machine the Spinning Jenny, some say after his daughter, Jennifer, whilst others claim that it was the name of his wife. In fact, parish records prove that neither his daughter nor his wife had that name. This breakthrough was to transform the spinning industry from one carried out at home to one that would be mechanized and carried out in mills, at first with the aid of water power, and not long after by steam. In the process, two new classes in British society would come into existence, namely the manufacturing capitalists and the working class, without whom the manufacturer's capital, namely mills and machinery, could not exist and could not be productive. In less than 4 years after the invention of the spinning jenny, another uneducated working man designed the water frame. He was Thomas Hayes, a reed manufacturer from Lee in Lancashire, a reed being an essential part of a hand-loom weaver's equipment. Unfortunately for him, he asked a clockmaker, John Kay, to manufacture a working model for him in metal. Kay promptly contacted Richard Arkwright, a Preston barber with a bit of brass, and they jointly patented the water frame as their own invention in 1768. Thus, they set a precedent of immoral and thieving behaviour which many capitalist entrepreneurs seek to emulate down to this very day. Meanwhile, other forces were at work which would turn our attention to Castlefield. In 1761, the Duke of Bridgewater's engineer, James Brindley, completed the first section of the Duke's Canal, the Bridgewater, designed to transport coal from his Lancashire mines at Worsley to Salford and Manchester. By 1765, the canal had reached Manchester, and Castlefield Wharf was opened. That coal was mainly intended for domestic use, but it was not long before its ready supply made it possible to introduce steam power to the spinning mills of South East Lancashire and North East Cheshire. It was also the beginning of a period of intensive canal building for the transportation of raw materials and manufactured goods that was not challenged until the opening of the first passenger railway line between Edge Hill, on the outskirts of Liverpool, and the Liverpool Road station in Manchester, again at Castlefield in 1830. Thus, in the space of a few years, Manchester and Salford were transformed from predominantly rural villages into concentrated centres of industrial power, producing wealth at a pace unprecedented in the history of the human race. By the 1790s, the rural landscape had been transformed, and the skyline of both towns was punctuated by 7- and 8-storey mills, each accompanied by towering chimneys. As the young Benjamin Disraeli, then a Tory radical, put it in his novel Coningsby, or The New Generation, in 1844, what art was to the ancient world, science is to the modern, the distinctive faculty. In the minds of men, the useful has succeeded to the beautiful. Instead of the city of the violet crown, a Lancashire village has expanded into a mighty region of factories and warehouses. Yet rightly understood, Manchester is as great a human exploit as Athens.